Hi, friends, and welcome to All the Things TV with me, Tiffany Jo Baker, where our heart is to help you grip God's grace, use your gifts, and get your goals, even in your mess and mission. Join us now for this episode of Season 2 of the podcast, where we talk about different areas that we may be on the struggle bus, so you can struggle less and succeed more and do all the things you've been called and created to do. So y'all, we are back with another episode of All the Things TV. I'm Tiffany Jo Baker, and today I have one of my good friends, Heidi Lewerenz, here with me today, and we're going to talk about a common struggle that moms on a mission and women with a Y deal with, and that's the work-life rhythm struggle. So if you don't know Heidi, I want to tell you a little bit about her and why she has to deal with work-life struggle, maybe even more than a little of us do. She is a mom of 7. Y'all, 7 children. And I know if you've been around here long enough, you know I've birthed 7 children, but I only am raising 2 of those. She's raising all 7 of those children. She is a wife of 1, and over the years, she's been a multi-business owner, ministry owner, and so she's the perfect person for us to just kind of begin to tackle this work-life rhythm struggle. So let me share with you just a couple of stats before we jump in with Heidi. Number 1, 70% of moms with kids under 18 work. Over 75% of those work full-time. Moms report spending 18 hours a week on household chores. And 66% of adults say they don't have a work-life balance. So Heidi, I want to bring you in on this topic because it's so important. Kind of just to start us off, what would you say? I know we've heard a lot about what balance is, what rhythm is. Can you share with us maybe the difference between rhythm and balance?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody has a different take on it, but I can just speak from my experience. I was always very frustrated with this idea of trying to get balance because I was always feeling out of balance, right? I was always, rocking it in one area and feeling like I was dropping the ball in another area. And as my family grew and as my business grew, and, I think as ambitious women, right, things grow. When God blesses them, things grow. And this idea of balance just wasn't working for me. So I shifted into thinking more about rhythm. And the way I kind of define rhythm is like with a flow. It's similar to music. If you play a musical instrument, you have these habits that are your anchor points that are kind of like the beat to everything that's happening. And then, if our great conductor, the Lord, decides that he's going to bring in some kind of instrument that you're not expecting, your rhythm helps you receive that and kind of transition through it. So rhythm is the goal for me because that A is attainable. And B is really in alignment with being open to the Holy Spirit and open to knowing that God is moving and working in my life.
I love that. And I love just that thought of the music and the flow and how sometimes it's going faster, right? Sometimes our music goes faster. Sometimes our music is more restful and slower, but it's like knowing what you need in that stanza, in that season for your work-life rhythm.
Absolutely.
Well, could you share with us maybe how you've struggled with finding work-life rhythm and maybe what has worked for you?
Yeah. So the struggle is real. I mean, right? Yeah. That's so cliche, but it's true. And I struggled when I had 1. I struggled when I had 2 kids. I struggled, I think, at every point in our lives, God is teaching us new things. And so I think there is always a struggle when your heart has 2 really important callings. And, and for me, motherhood, it's got that eternal piece, those souls are so important. And so I really value that calling. So there's a tension between doing the work that's life-giving and I know makes an eternal impact. And yet knowing that really no one else is responsible for raising my children except me. Or my husband, you know what I mean? I can't just farm that out, spiritually speaking. So the transitions were always the hardest time for me with finding a rhythm or keeping a rhythm. So adding a baby, having to move, job change, kids growing into different seasons.
So true, because sometimes I always say, once I get in my flow for the summer's over. So that's like that transition, a season of trying to figure that out. So what has maybe been like the single most important shift and maybe your mindset and your thinking, maybe that was in your habits, that really helped you adapt to those transitions and just find that rhythm for you?
That's a great question. I think there's probably been two really big shifts that have happened, because now we're graduating our first child. So he's 18. So there was a big shift about 10 or 12 years ago when my husband and I went into business together. And I was in a leadership cohort, and we were doing all this work around our strengths, like the Clifton Strengths Finder and values, and kind of creating a leadership profile. And I'd always imagined all those gifts and talents and ambitions in the professional realm. I didn't really see them in these other realms of life that God was calling me into. So I think the shift that happened then was integrating all the ways God has designed me into all the work he's called me to do. So I was showing up stronger because I wasn't siloing those giftings. So that was the first big shift. And then I think the second big shift, it took me having 7 children. It was after the 7th baby. I'd always just sort of believed that my kids were like parachutes on my back, open, with the wind blowing at me, and I'm running into the wind. And this is a picture of a burden. I mean, this is a picture of something that could be strength building, it's strength training. I can look at it as character development, but it was definitely a burden kind of view. And the Lord really brought to mind, like, why are you thinking of it that way? These are not meant to be burdens. And so then he just gave me this picture of, motherhood or work, life, or whatever it is I'm doing. I'm jumping out of a plane, and these children are parachutes. I'm not saying they're saving my life. That would be, codependent and whatever. I'm just saying that they're they're slowing me down in a way to see a beautiful view, right? And things that I wouldn't normally see. And it just that shift. And whether you have children or not, I think that sometimes we can look at the things that aren't work and view them as burdens instead of blessings.
Yeah. Yes. More like an obstacle that we have to get around to get to the thing we really want to do or we really feel most passionate about. And as I do, is that, like you said, our kids are our biggest blessings. They are a blessing. And that's part of this integrated life that you talk about and that you coach ambitious women through, and in this life rhythm. So could you maybe give us a picture for those who don't understand or maybe don't really know what that word is? Maybe they've heard about an integrated life, but what does that look like and what does that mean?
Yeah, so it's really integrating internally your callings and your design. And I don't know if you've seen the movie Iron Man. Okay, so how Iron Man has this core in his that keeps getting transferred. Whoever's got the core has the power. And I feel like that's the picture of the integrated life. Like, God has designed us to be body, mind, and spirit. He has called us into living a life of motherhood, if we are, or a life of relationship and a life of working and prosperity. And those things are not to be separated. It's kind of a cultural belief that they're supposed to be separated. So when I show up with all those things in my core, and I am holding beliefs that have them united. So I'm operating from this place of strength and integrity instead of having to transition continually into, okay, I'm in work mode. Okay, I'm in mom mode. And then always fighting that tension. Like, oh, I'm not being a good mom. And oh, I'm not being a good employee. And oh, I'm failing my ministry. And so I think that picture, that's sort of ideologically the picture of the integrated life. And everybody lives it out differently. You and I might both be integrated, but we're living it out differently. Like, maybe I need childcare because I still have a 2-year-old. And I need to set work hours because I don't have set time otherwise to work. So sometimes, there's that question of, do I do my whole business with my kids all around? How you live it out is not what matters. It's how you are viewing it and integrating in your heart and in your mind and in your spirit.
Oh, I think that's so good, because just that thought perspective of it's all ministry. It's all purpose. It's all call. So it's not like I'm going to do what God called me to do and then come back to this. It's all part of how we're wired, how we're made. And I know I was recently at another speaking event that you did and heard you talk about, like, even maybe bringing your kids into your ministry or your business. And our girls, both of our teenage girls, are part of my internship. And so as they see me do what God's called me to do, bring them into it and learning that we're multifaceted, and it's never just this one thing. It's so multifaceted, so just like a masterpiece, like God does, is where he's so beautifully woven together the gifts and the callings and the people that are in our life to have it be a big picture, integrated view. Oh, I love that so much.
Oh, I love what you just said. And, I think what's beautiful about that is then we as women don't feel like we have to choose between babies or career. I think that's the root of this big lie, that they have to be separate and you can't be successful at both. There's not room for both. Yeah. And you can't do that and ministry, right? So when you integrate, you really shift in those beliefs about this can happen together. Maybe they were even meant to happen together. Not just like I'm the crazy one doing it, but this is how it's supposed to be.
Yes. Yes. Because of our experiences, we bring that into the other sphere we're in, and it adds to the greatness. Oh my goodness, this is so good. Well, I want to just end. I always ask my guests for a verse that maybe is on their heart or God's used around this struggle or this topic. And you gave Isaiah 54:2, and it says, enlarge the place of your tent, stretch your tent curtains wide, do not hold back, lengthen your cords, strengthen your stakes. What does this mean to our work-life rhythm?
Well, this verse means so much to me, because I think that when we get overwhelmed or our work-life rhythm gets out of balance, it's real easy for us to lose the vision and to stop believing that God is truly blessing us in an abundance and how to receive those things. So in work-life rhythm, this verse speaks to me about this attitude of blessing versus burden. And it's a burden if you're not willing to lengthen your cords and strengthen your stakes. Like if you're all going to be cramped up in how you were before, well, then it is a burden, but this is the call. And this is the Lord saying, you know what? I am blessing you. I'm enlarging your space. And I know that verse prior to that is speaking specifically about, fertility and life and babies. But I think, there's lots of ways that God uses this creative metaphor of life. And so I do believe it's about human life, but I also believe it's about anything he's called us to that he wants to breathe life into. So sometimes that burden feeling is just because we haven't adjusted to the goodness of God. So really asking yourself, what does it look like to lengthen my cords? What does it look like to strengthen my stakes right now?
I love that. I love that. The enlarging of our territory, because sometimes we get so stuck, like this is the thing that I'm doing. And God, and what you're saying is, no, it's all of it. And let's enlarge it, see the bigger picture, and walk forward strengthened with the gifts and callings that God's given each one of us. Oh my goodness. So good. I could talk with you about this all day. Well, Heidi, likewise. I know you have some awesome things coming up. You have a resource that people can get for free that can help them with this. Can you tell us where to find you and where to find that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's called The 3 Ways to Choose Calm Over Crazy. And this really is a process that was birthed last month with all of the insanity that I was trying to, I was a little off in my life rhythm. So it's just, you can find it at HeidiLewerenz.com/calm. And it just walks you through these 3 ways to really recenter yourself and get back in a little bit of a rhythm. And it's a prayerful exercise. We're inviting God into this process because I really believe that's the only way forward when you're caught in that space of overwhelm and moving from crazy to calm.
Oh, I love it. And just so y'all know how to spell her last name, it is Lewerenz. And I will have that in the show notes and in the comments below. Well, Heidi, thank you so much for joining me. I so appreciate talking to you about this.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. And I just appreciate all the work you're doing for ambitious Christian women who are doing all the things. And thanks for just bringing the struggle bus to us, just because it's helpful to know we're not alone, and just having these little nuggets, every week about how we can make these little shifts to stay going after the calling that God has called us to. So thank you for the work you're doing too, friend.
Oh, awesome. I love it. I'm so glad we can do this together. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you next week, where we continue to talk about all the things God has called and created us to do. See you next time. Well, friends, thank you for joining us today on All the Things TV video podcast. If you enjoyed our time together and are taking away a nugget that has inspired your soul and success, would you share this episode with a loved one who could use it too? And if you haven't already, take a moment to rate and review the podcast and help me spread soul care and dream care. Until next time, I'm Tiffany Jo Baker, a 3-time surrogate and strategizer who loves to help you birth your God-given dreams. Now go do all the things you've been called and created to do with the grace and gifts God has given you.